Hey, welcome back to part 3 of our Windows 8.1 new user interface. Now, if you got a chance, hopefully you saw part 1 and part 2. As we left part 2, we were talking about some of the changes, and we challenged everybody to say, I bet we could teach you everything you need to know about the new user interface in just a couple of minutes.
So are we challenging them or are we challenging ourselves?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
Because we've never done this before, and we're flying without
and working without
safety
an
nets.
right?
Exactly. Yeah. She wouldn't come anyway, so. So you were saying that there's one thing in particular we got to start with if we're talking user interface, and that's the charms bar.
The charms bar, yes.
How do I do the charms bar?
The charms bar is actually, and this is kind of your home base. Now, the thing about Windows is there's, particularly in 8 and 8.1, there's 100 different ways to get around anything. But if you get into a jam and you want to kind of get back to home plate, so to speak, there's a couple ways you could do it. You could hit the Windows key C if you happen to have a keyboard, or if you just happen to have a touch screen, you can flip right in. Another thing you can do basically is you can take the mouse and you can move it up to the top corner and it will pop in there as well.
All three of those are giving you the charms bar.
Absolutely.
And that's why it's kind of the core. And I know this is crazy to do, but I want to do this anyway, so I'm sure I'm going to damage something. But a lot of people, believe it or not, don't even realize they have this Windows key up here. I did a presentation to a bunch of people the other day, and I mentioned this, and someone said, what key is he talking about? We actually had to bring a keyboard and show him. It's that key. And the reason why, it's not too surprising, because it's not used for much up until now. Now, there's a lot of cool shortcuts and key sequences and other things that are triggered off that key. We'll show some of those too.
Yeah, it used to be right next to the any key.
The any key.
The any key.
Any key. I like that. Okay. All right, so we're going to pull up that charms. We pop that. What does the charms bar do for me?
Well, the charms bar, at the center of the charms bar is the start button that gets you back to the start screen. So that's kind of your anchor.
Right.
And above and below that, you've got search. And again, it's like the rest of it, there's 100 ways to get to search, and we'll talk about that too. Right. But share has some features if you want. If you're in a like an app where you're looking at some of your pictures of the kids or whatever, you want to post something to Facebook, you can
looking on an internet page, and I want to share it and show Brett some cool story or something.
Absolutely.
Right.
Devices has to do with peripherals. You may have Kinect projector or something like that, and then settings. Settings, we could do a whole section just on settings. That takes you in and helps you customize your Windows experience as well as devices and things like that. Well,
so as we got that as our anchor, and we'll come back to that. I want to show them the 4 swipes that are really all you need to learn about the Windows 8.1 interface, and we'll explain it. And Brett and I have different ways of talking about it, and we sometimes disagree. We know my ways, right? But we'll come to that in a second. But the first swipe I always like to show everyone is using my hand. I'm going to swipe from the left.
What else would you use to swipe?
My nose.
Okay. I don't want to see that.
It's very, very dangerous.
Okay.
And we didn't load up any applications, so let me load up some applications. So I'm just going to pop a few up. And you can tell we have not scripted this because we're making this up as we go along.
No, these are all good examples. We're just picking a few of the applications that are available.
So, and we just and if you didn't see section 2 was explaining the difference between apps and applications. So I encourage you to do that, or check out the blog, or check out the podcast
that we did.
So what I'm doing here is I'm just swiping from this left. I'm going to do it really fast just to show you how quick it can go. What is this the equivalent of in the previous world of Windows?
I think it's probably the equivalent of, in fact, I can do it this way. The good old-fashioned Alt-Tab.
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 Right? So app switching with a touch device is actually really fast and quick. I can just scroll as fast as I want to.
Go back to the cookies.
Okay. The cookies.
Yes.
You tell it's late in the afternoon, and I
exactly.
think
I need a cookie.
We're just going to stand here and look at the cookies for just a few minutes. Okay, I got my. All right. So Alt-Tab, flippy, flip, flip. Now you showed that the Alt-Tab with the keyboard still works, but I kind of like seeing them all up at one time. Is there a way I can do an Alt-Tab, but I can still see all of the apps that are currently up and running?
There's a backward C.
Backward C. And so what I'm going to do...
on the left edge.
I'm going to pull in, and a backward C means I'm going to do a hook maneuver. Right?
Yes.
So I'm going to do it slow first, just to show everyone. So I'm going to pull in, and then I'm going to move back to the side, and look what happens. I get this long list of all the apps that are currently running that I can flip back and forth.
And you can click on or touch
on
it.
I want to go to finance. Bye-bye cookies. Love you. And I can
Now we're in
instantly go
finance.
to the finance.
Yeah.
And if I do this fast, it's really just a fast little move like that. You know,
Sure.
I was doing it slower, but a lot of people just hook it around. And I found in talking to people that everyone's like, wow, no idea that that was there. Makes it so much faster, easier to use. When I do this too, let's go back, let me flip back in. You notice when I pulled in, now what happened? I started to pull, and suddenly I get two screens here.
Uh-huh.
So if it's halfway in, if I drop this, am I going to get two screens?
Let's see.
And sure enough, I do. Right?
Bazinga.
So we have the ability to split the screen now. And in Windows 8.1, we can actually split this, depending on the device, but we can split it up to 3 different ways.
Based upon your resolution, yeah, you can add more. So,
And not only that, but I love this.
Yeah.
It used to be that you could only get a 50-50 split. Well, now I can actually customize this by dragging it left or right to whichever side.
actually,
I want.
in 8, it was kind of a 70-30. 8.1 gave you the 50-50, and then beyond, the flexibility.
There you go.
Yeah.
So one of the other things I like about 8.1 is it's more intelligent about the apps you're using. So if you're using the Mail app and you click on a browser link, instead of it closing down the Mail app so you can't see anymore and pulling up the browser, it now pulls it up in a window beside you. Or I know you and I both like Skype. Skype, if a call comes in or you make a call, it'll just pop it up in that corner. So it's smart about splitting the window when it makes sense to split the window. Because nothing's worse is you pull something up to look at it and the document you were looking at is now gone. It's really hard to find, or you don't know where it went or whatever. You want to see them simultaneously.
Absolutely.
We do also support multi-monitors, and they did a much better job with multi-monitors. So I could actually have 3 separate monitors running, each with 3 window splits in it. I could be surrounded by 9
Wall-to-wall
apps.
apps.
There you go. All right, so remember, swipe from the left is Alt-Tab. It's the equivalent of that.
Yep.
Now, one of the things we talked about in the last session was with apps in particular, there's no close button.
Nope.
And we showed the audience that the way to close was to drag from the top and swipe down. And that's how I close an app.
Yep.
Do I have to close my app? Is it important that I close my app all the time?
You know, this is actually been a source of a lot of discussion. Now, the interesting thing about apps, as opposed to applications like Excel, Word, etc., is these apps actually leverage the browser engine. So they use the Internet Explorer browser engine to run. Now, if you have all of these applications open and they're in the background, they're not really on the screen, not really using up any resources.
They're not sucking my memory. They're not burning up my processor.
That's
they're
one
not
of the
doing
reasons Microsoft didn't feel the need to put an X button on there, is because they weren't really doing anything.
Microsoft and Intel work together too. So when my app is not displayed full screen, it's really having almost zero impact on my system whatsoever. You can have up to 128 apps open simultaneously. Now, I think it's unusable at that point, but
Yeah.
you could if you wanted to. You just don't have to worry about closing it. Where some other operating systems, if you have them running, eventually they're going to start bleeding away memory, and you have to do that hard reset, hard start. So that's taken care of in 8.1. I love that feature about it. So swipe from the left, Alt-Tab. Swipe from the top is to close. If I swipe from the right, you already showed us this. This is that Charms bar.
Yep.
Now, you and I describe this a little bit differently. The way I talk about the Charms bar to people, the Charms bar is when you want to set settings on the device itself. Meaning that the things that you find here are related to the computer. Like, for example, if I go into settings, I can look at my wireless access. I can look at my sound, my hardware related. And it's setting the properties for those devices, the physical devices themselves. And just a second before you explain your side of that, I just want to show the difference. Let me Alt-Tab over. So now I'm in an app. If I swipe from the bottom up, which is our last gesture, this is where I can set the properties for the app. So you see the difference? Swipe from the right is properties for the computer. Swipe from the bottom is properties for the app.
Well, I think a better way, or I would say it, I'm not going to say it's a better way, but it's like the top and the bottom allow you to choose how you interact, but I would say that the left would be more the settings. I'll give you an example. So let's swipe in here and go to settings. You see up here on the top. Now, this bottom portion here is static no matter where you are. I apologize for accidentally hitting that. But you look up here, personalized tiles help. If I go to desktop, I sweep that in, and what do we have? We have control panel, personalization, PC info, and help. Now, wait for it. If I launch the weather app, and I swipe in, options, about, personalization, terms of use. So these are, the top portion is dedicated to this app.
But it's different, right? It's
You're
not
right.
setting the properties of the app, it's setting the properties of how the app relates to everything outside the computer. So like a subscription to a newsletter.
The
or
account, where you would type in the account would be on the settings bar.
I think we've done a great job thoroughly confusing them on
Absolutely.
this now. But you get the difference, right? You can still set your settings for the app, but with the right swipe, you're setting them as it relates out to beyond just the program itself. The bottom swipe is to set the settings. And why would you set settings for an app? If you're watching the weather and you're flying to Toledo tomorrow and you want to check what the weather's like, you would set the properties for the weather app to be for Toledo so you could see it. Or you're looking at the stock market and you want to see how your portfolio is doing versus just the general Dow Jones Industrial Average. That's
Sure.
how you set those. So, 4 swipes. Alt-Tab, I'm going to turn this way. Alt-Tab this way.
Okay.
Close the app this way. Settings for the property and what you talked about, the hub of the computer. And from the bottom is settings for the app specific. Right?
Sounds good.
And it's probably a good place to stop because what we'll do is the next one, we're really going to dive into that new start menu and talk specifically about why did Microsoft do it? Why everyone got upset when that start menu went bye-bye? Well, now it's back.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of exciting things that I think you're going to want to see about it and learn about it, and we'll bring that up.
Absolutely.
All right.